There is a strange question many people carry quietly in their mind, one they rarely say out loud: why did I feel like an outsider in my own family? Not adopted, not unloved, just different. You followed the same rules, lived under the same roof, yet something about you never quite blended in. Conversations felt slightly off. Expectations never fit your shape. And over time, you may have accepted a painful conclusion: something must be wrong with me. But psychology tells a very different story. In fact, when examined closely, the person labeled the black sheep is often not the broken one in the system, but the most perceptive. The one who sensed emotional truths others unconsciously avoided. The one whose mind refused to fully adapt to patterns that were silently unhealthy. What if that discomfort you felt wasn't a flaw, but evidence of rare psychological gifts forming under pressure? And what if being the black sheep was not a curse you survived, but a signal of strengths most people never develop at all? When a person grows up as the black sheep, their nervous system adapts in a very specific way. From a psychological standpoint, being subtly or openly different within a family creates a constant need to observe, assess, and predict emotional environments. You learn early that reactions are unpredictable, that approval may come and disappear without clear rules. As a result, the mind becomes highly attentive. This is not anxiety by nature, it is awareness shaped by context. Over time, this heightened observation turns into an advanced form of emotional intelligence that most people never consciously develop. Unlike those who feel safely mirrored by their family, the black sheep cannot rely on emotional shortcuts. They must read tone, timing, body language, and silence. They learn when to speak and when not to, when emotions are safe to express and when they will be punished or dismissed. This continuous emotional scanning trains the brain to detect subtle shifts in human behavior. In adulthood, this often appears as strong intuition. You may sense tension before words are spoken, or understand someone's emotional state even when they are carefully hiding it. This ability is not mystical, it is learned psychological pattern recognition. Another rare strength that emerges is self-reflection. When your experience does not match the family narrative, you are forced inward. You ask questions others never ask: why do I feel this way? Why does this affect me differently? Why do I see things they don't? These questions build metacognition, the ability to think about your own thinking. From a clinical view, this is a cornerstone of emotional maturity. People who develop it early are often capable of regulating their emotions with depth and nuance later in life. They may feel deeply, but they are not confused by their feelings. There is also an important distinction here: the black sheep is often mislabeled as too sensitive, when in reality they are highly responsive. Sensitivity suggests weakness. Responsiveness suggests attunement. Your emotional reactions were signals, not defects. You noticed emotional inconsistencies, unresolved conflicts, and unspoken tensions because your psyche was not numb to them. Many families function by suppressing discomfort. The person who cannot suppress it becomes the problem, not because they are wrong, but because they disrupt denial. Over time, this role produces a strong internal framework. When external validation is unreliable, the psyche learns to validate itself. This builds an internal sense of truth. You may doubt yourself at times, but you also possess a deep respect for authenticity. You are less likely to live a life that feels false just to belong. From a psychiatric lens, this is a rare and valuable adaptation. It means you are capable of emotional honesty, deep empathy, and psychological insight, not despite being the black sheep, but because of it. Another rare psychological gift that often develops in those who were the black sheep of their family is an unusually strong sense of identity built through differentiation rather than imitation. In most families, belonging is maintained by similarity, shared beliefs, shared behaviors, shared emotional responses. But when a child does not naturally align with these patterns, the psyche is placed under pressure to either disappear into conformity or separate internally. The black sheep does not fully disappear. Instead, they differentiate. From a clinical perspective, this process strengthens the self in a way that comfort never could. Because acceptance was inconsistent, you likely learned early that living for approval was emotionally unsafe. This forces a subtle but powerful psychological shift. The center of gravity moves inward. Rather than asking, "Who do they want me to be?" the mind begins asking, "Who am I, even if no one agrees?" This is not rebellion for its own sake. It is self-definition under constraint. Over time, this builds a core identity that is less dependent on external praise and more anchored in personal values, perception, and meaning. This internal anchoring also explains why many former black sheep develop a high tolerance for solitude. Solitude, in this context, is not loneliness, it is emotional self-sufficiency. When connection feels conditional, the psyche learns to be its own witness. Clinically, this trait is often seen in people who are capable of deep introspection, long-term focus, and independent thinking. You may find that you are comfortable walking alone through ideas, beliefs, or life paths that others fear because they require group approval to feel real. Another aspect of this gift is resilience through psychological flexibility. Being misunderstood repeatedly forces the mind to adapt. You learn that reality is not always validated externally, so you become skilled at holding complexity. You can tolerate contradiction, loving people who hurt you, understanding systems that failed you without collapsing into bitterness. This capacity for nuance is a sign of advanced emotional development. It allows you to engage with the world without needing it to be simple or fair at all times. There is also a quiet leadership quality that emerges from this role. Not leadership through dominance, but through perspective. Because you stand slightly outside the system, you see patterns others inside it cannot. In therapeutic settings, individuals with this background often become natural counselors, creatives, or change agents. They question inherited beliefs, challenge outdated narratives, and imagine alternatives. This is not because they reject family, it is because their mind was trained to think beyond it. Ultimately, the black sheep's greatest gift is not independence alone, but integrity. The ability to remain psychologically whole even when belonging comes at a cost. From a psychiatric viewpoint, this is a rare outcome of early emotional friction. It means your mind learned to choose truth over comfort, self-awareness over conformity, and inner coherence over external approval. And those are not common traits, they are cultivated under pressure, shaped in silence, and revealed over time. If you were the black sheep of your family, the most important thing to understand is this: your difference was not an accident, and it was not a flaw. From a psychological standpoint, systems resist change, and the person who feels out of place is often the one whose mind could not fully adapt to emotional shortcuts, denial, or inherited patterns. You were not rejecting your family, you were responding honestly to an environment that required silence to survive. That honesty came at a cost, but it also shaped you in rare ways. What once felt like isolation refined your awareness. What felt like rejection strengthened your inner structure. And what felt like confusion forced you to develop clarity from within. These are not traits everyone possesses. They are the result of a mind that learned to stand alone without losing its sensitivity, to question without becoming bitter, and to see deeply without turning away. Many people belong easily, but never truly know themselves. You were pushed towards self-knowledge early, and that is not a weakness, it is a psychological advantage. The final shift happens when you stop asking why you didn't fit, and start asking what kind of mind it took not to fit. The role you were given was never a verdict on your worth. It was evidence of your capacity to see, feel, and think beyond the limits of the system you were born into. And when you fully recognize that, the label, black sheep, no longer defines you. It dissolves. What remains is someone with depth, integrity, and the rare ability to live from the inside out.